Hi everybody, it's great to be back here again. Tomorrow it's Friday, Parashat Vayera. I want to continue with our lessons on the portions, on current events that connect to the war situation in Israel. It's uncanny how God is like waving a flag at us with the messages that appear in these portions. This week we're almost a month in the war. To date, today is the 3rd of November, so it began on October 7th. If we all recall, the situation down south, this week we heard of the great news of a release of a hostage, a very, very amazing mission on behalf of the brave soldiers of Israel rescuing her. But together with that, we have the sadness of many soldiers who fell this week in battle. And every one of our soldiers is precious and has no price, obviously. And we are, of course, sharing in the sorrow of the families and the terrible tragedies of so many families that are experiencing, of course, to this very day, the nightmare of their loved ones being still kept in hostage, and who knows what's going on, and all those who lost their dear ones. It's very, very difficult, a very, very painful situation in Israel. We're all trying to keep ourselves sane and by doing positive things. That's the most important thing, to be involved in positive activity. And it's a good time to thank all those who have been involved in helping Israel. And we here in Itamar, obviously, we are greatly appreciative from friends of Itamar, for those who are supporting us and standing with us at this difficult time. And during war, of course, and those, of course, have been always standing with us, even non-war times. We hope, we pray for those days to go back to normal situation of life. And God willing, we have to work very hard to achieve that. But this war can take many, many months. But eventually we will overcome the enemy. I want to just share a few messages from the portion that I opened up with, saying they're extremely relevant and we have to take them to heart regarding what's going on now. And some of them are very difficult. Obviously, the great problem that people have relating to the situation in Israel, those who are even standing with us, but you still hear them talking of a two-state solution. You still hear things like that, which are ridiculous, obviously. And we're going to see now in this week's portion why they're ridiculous. And that's going against, of course, Hashem's word and the Torah. And of course, people, especially who grew up on Western culture, do not understand, and they can never really understand the mindset of these radical Islamic murderers that want to uproot and destroy Israel. So they're coming from a whole nother way of thinking, and they just don't understand what living here in Israel is all about in the Middle East. It's a different culture, a different mindset, and it's something that the world has to wake up to and realize it, because it's not only here in Israel. We're fighting the battles now here, but this struggle is affecting the entire world, and it's all over the world. And if it's not taken care of, it could release, and it will release, and it already is releasing tremendous havoc all over the world. And there's an example this week in Dagestan. They tried to lynch an Israeli plane that came through their area. So we just give an example of what it is, and violent demonstrations, etc. But let's begin our lesson and show some points, as I mentioned before. The first thing I want to recall and refresh our mind is Avraham Avinu, Abraham, was living at this time in Hebron, Be'elonei Mamre, right, in the Hebron area. And as we all know, last week we read about how Abraham goes to battle. We spoke about his fearlessness, going to battle against the 4 kings that kidnapped his nephew Lot. Obviously, we spoke about the connection. And Abraham was successful in battle, and after the battle was over, he obviously returns to his area where he was living, in the area of Hebron. And something else comes about, and we have to talk about it, is that if we pay attention to the verses that we spoke about last week, we see how the people that Abraham rescued, there were 5 major cities. And the Sodom V'Amorah, those were the 2 cities, Sodom V'Amorah. Those are the famous ones everyone heard of, Sodom and Gomorrah, but there were also other cities, right? There were altogether 5 kings. There were 5 cities in the in that area. And Abraham rescues them all. But the Torah doesn't hide from us that they were very evil. And there's Midrashim which talk about the evilness of those cities. But Abraham rescued them, and part of, you say, the package deal of getting his nephew Lot, but it was much more than that. Abraham wanted to do love and kindness. He was a man of love and kindness. And we see it right away in this week's portion, which opens up. Abraham is sitting by his tent, as we all know, and he's looking out to do love and kindness. He's waiting by the entrance of his tent to see who's going to come by. And then, of course, he's given them amazing news that his wife is going to have a child. He's going to have a child, to an elderly couple is going to have a child, which was hard to believe, right? Sarah was laughing. But we see Abraham's whole being was to do love and kindness. That was his whole being. And right away, the next, after that section, the Torah reveals all that to us and reveals about Avraham Avinu's, the gift he's going to get. The Torah tells us, of course, about the story of Sodom V'Amorah, of Sodom and Gomorrah, that God has to eliminate the evil in the world. And I want to read the verse that relates to that. I'm going to read some of those verses. Vayom, and this verse appears in chapter 18, verse 17 to 19. Vashem Amar, and God says, Hamichaseh ani me'Avraham asher ani oseh. And God says, should I hide from Abraham what I'm going to do? V'Avraham hayo yiyeh legoy gadol v'atzum. Abraham's going to be a very, very big nation. V'nivrechu vo kol goy haaretz, and all the families on earth will be blessed with an Abraham. So in other words, how could God possibly hide what he's going to do from Abraham, who in reality has the goal of rectifying the world? Right? And here God has to do something seemingly the opposite, right? Destruction, to wipe out 5 cities of evil. So when we think about that, Abraham, whose whole being was to bring a blessing to the world, to reach out to people, when he was standing at the entrance of his tent over here in Elonei Mamre, where he was living at the time, who was he looking out for? He was looking out for those people of those nations, those 5 nations that were still, before God destroyed the nations, to do love and kindness to them. He believed that he can reach out, he can rectify. Avraham Avinu had a whole plan of tikkun olam, rectifying the world, which through teaching them the light of Torah, teach them the beautiful light of doing love and kindness, all that is connected to the Torah and to God. So that was Abraham's purpose. And so here, God had to do something difficult. He couldn't hide from Abraham, right? The Midrash reveals to us that God doesn't hide from his prophets, the great things that are going to happen in the world. So Abraham is, of course, told, and we see how Abraham goes ahead and he tries to pray on their behalf. Maybe there'll be 50 righteous people, a minyan, a forum of 10 righteous people in each city will be enough to save the city. And etc. Eventually, they couldn't even find 10. There weren't even 10 righteous people that were able to save the cities. And here we see, and God totally, of course, unleashes his wrath on those cities. They're totally wiped out. And we know Lot survives with his daughters, and we all know the story of Lot. And when he runs away in the cave, etc. Right after that story of Sodom, which obviously Abraham was now left without a large population of people that he can feel he can bring back to the light of God, he can rectify them. Because sometimes it is a very interesting lore in Judaism. Certain kind of vessels. There are vessels that we know that we can't eat things that are not kosher. When a vessel absorbs something that's not kosher, we can't even use those vessels, those dishes to cook from. We have to cleanse them, and they have to be purified, and they have to be what we call koshered out. So it's something that's metal. The law is the way to absorb, is the way we clean it. So a metal vessel, we can take a burner and burn it out, or we can boil up boiling hot water. It depends how the vessel was used. But certain vessels can't be cleaned at all, can't be koshered at all, because they absorb something that cannot be taken and get out at all. And those vessels are earthenware. We call them in Hebrew klei cheres. And what is their rectification? Their rectification is only through destruction. Only by totally destroying the vessel. Sometimes the vessel can't be rectified. And that's what the lesson that God was giving to Abraham was, that regarding Sodom and Gomorrah, just like the flood that was brought to the world. Certain times rectification comes through total destruction. and then to rebuild again later. But of course, Abraham tried his best, and he realized that that was the situation. So not having, again, a population where he can reach out to, so he goes on. It says in chapter 20, verse 1, Vayisa misham Avraham al Negev, Vayeshev ben Kadesh ben Shul, Vayagol begrar. So he goes to an area in the Negev area, in the south, to a place called Gerar, the land of the Plishtim, the Philistine area. And that's because Abraham was searching. He was looking for, as Rashi says on the spot. And I'll read Rashi. Rashi says, Kishara shechavu akrakim. When he saw that the cities were destroyed, ufasku ovrim dashavim, and there's no longer people going by, nasal lo misham. He left the area of Elonei Mamre. He went further south to look for people he can do love and kindness to. He brings another explanation. Litrachek melod sheyatsa alav shem ra shebal benotav. Also, he wanted to separate himself from his nephew because at the end of the day, a name came out that there was an incestuous relationship between Lot and his two daughters, that when they thought that they were the only ones left in the world, so it still brought a bad name. He didn't want to be next to Lot, who had a bad name, for that kind of thing. Although we know at the end, and we're not going to go there now, is that from Moav comes Messiah out of that relationship. But let's go further from here. So anyway, we see Abraham having to move away because he's searching to do love and kindness. The next lesson, I want to show us again things that are relevant today, because the first one was very clear. The next one is chapter 21, verse 9 to 12. And here we see, Vatera Sarah et ben Hagar ha-Mitzrit asher yelda l'Avram misachek. After we know that the elderly couple didn't have children, and God blessed, and as he promised to Abraham and Sarah, they finally were zoched, they finally married a son, Yitzchak. And Sarah sees, what does Sarah see? Sarah sees that the child of Hagar, Yishmael, misachek, he's playing. Now what does the word playing here mean? And right away, the Midrash talks about what the word playing means. And I'm just going to quickly summarize what playing here means. Playing here means, the Midrash explains very carefully, refers to two things. Yishmael was involved in murder, and he was involved in idol worship. And Sarah, the word lesachek means literally to play, but it also refers to, obviously, to those two topics, as we see in the Torah. I'm not going to have, there are many examples where we see those words. Lesachek could refer to those two things, murder and idol worship. And when Sarah sees this, she doesn't want someone who is a murderer. And not only that, the Midrash brings down that he actually tried to play a game of shooting arrows at Isaac. So right away, Sarah sees that Yishmael's tendency is to be violent and to murder. And she says to Abraham right away, and we're going back to the verse I spoke about in chapter 21, in verse number 10, she says, Vatomel Avram, she says to Abraham, Garesh amazot vet bena, chase away this maidservant and her son. So Sarah is telling to Abraham, chase them away, throw them out. Ki lo yirash ben amazot im beni Yitzchak, he will not inherit. Yishmael will not inherit with my son Isaac. And God tells her right away, in verse number 12, after Abraham found this, it was difficult for Abraham, again, love and kindness, it was a son from a maidservant, whatever it was painful for Abraham, so God tells Abraham, in verse number 12, Vayomer Elohim el Avraham, al yiral beinecha, el anav al amatecha. Don't feel bad about this. Kol asher tomar elecha Sarah, everything that your wife says, shma bekola, listen to your wife. Ki biyitzchak yikare lecha zara, because from Yitzchak is going to be your children, your progeny. In other words, they will inherit the land, obviously, of Israel. It was given to the people of Israel. And therefore, it wasn't given to the people of Yishmael. And therefore, God says, listen to Sarah Imenu, listen to her voice. Fascinating. So obviously, it's very, very clear. And here we see this message is clear as day as well, is that the danger that comes out of Yishmael, the violence, the murder, the evil that comes out, right away Sarah told Abraham, this can't be, he's not going to be able to be without his son here in the land. That's the next point I wanted to bring out. Okay, we're going to go to point number 3. And after this, I'm going to wrap them up together. going to try to summarize it all together in a message, in a clear message. So if you look continue looking along the portion, it's brought down in chapter 21, verse 22 to 30. We're not going to read all the verses, but 22 to 34 is the next section. And here we see another interesting situation. So relevant, of course, is today. Avimelech, who was the king of, as we know, the Philistine, Plishtim. And he says to Avraham, I see that God is with you in everything you do. And he sees how God is blessing Abraham and how he merited having a child. And here he's saying, Vatahi shavali belohim hineim tishkoli ulenini ulechti. He's saying, I want you to swear to me. If you're going to lie to my children, to my grandchildren, great-grandchildren, a few generations, he's making Abraham swear to him that he's going to, because I've done love and kindness to you. And the question is, we don't see anywhere that he did love and kindness to Abraham, but he's saying right away, look how good I am, I did love and kindness to you, and I want you to make an oath with me, I want you to make a covenant. And Abraham does that, he makes a covenant. And then Abraham tells him about the well that they stole from Abraham, and then he sets aside the 7 sheep, which in this becomes a name, as we know later on, Beersheba, right? Beersheba, the city Beersheba, comes from that covenant of the 7 sheep. And then it says Abraham lived in that area for many, many days. He lived in that area of the Plishtim, the Philistines, for many, many days, it says. But whatever it is, here we see Abraham making a covenant with the Plishtim in the land. And right after this event, we all know what takes place is the Akedat Yitzchak, the bounding of Isaac. And here we have, first of all, I want to read what was this covenant that Abraham made. What was the covenant? And Rabbeinu Bachye, one of the commentaries from the late 1200s, he was born around 1255, and he passed away in 1340. And Rabbeinu Bachye, he says like this. He has a translation which is a combination of basic pshat levels to different levels of understanding. A fascinating commentary on the Bible, and he was from Spain. That's where he was born, in Spain. But anyway, let's read his commentary about the covenant that went on between Abraham and Avimelech. And he says like this: Bikesh Avimelech shtei britot. He wanted 2 covenants. Number 1, that Abraham shouldn't chase out his children from the land. And number 2, and number 2, that they shouldn't destroy their fruit in the land, their trees, their fruit, their produce. Those were the 2 things that Abraham agreed to Avimelech. In other words, not to chase them out and to provide humanitarian assistance of not destroying their produce. Now, if we go on from here, I want to read the fascinating commentary of the Rashbam. The Rashbam explains now really a fascinating commentary on the unraveling of events here, the connection between making this covenant with Avimelech the Philistine and seeing what happens later with the binding of Isaac. And really a very, very famous, fascinating explanation. I want to read that right now to you. I'll just mention again who the Rashbam. We all know that the Rashbam was the grandson of Rashi. He was born in around the year 1080, and he passed away in 1160. And he lived in France, and he studied with his grandfather Rashi, really fascinating giant of Torah. And this is what he writes. I'm going to read his words now. He says like this. He says, "Kol makom shene'emar achar advarim ha'el." Every time it says after these things, it's always connected to the previous portion. He says, so when it opens up the portion of the binding of Isaac, it says after these things, meaning after what? After what? The covenant that he made. The Rashbam says after the covenant he made with Avimelech, and he explains like this. After Abraham made the brit, the covenant with Avimelech, with him and with his children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, And he says like this, he says, V'natan lo sheva kvasot, atzon, and he gave him these 7 sheep. V'chara po shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu azot. And now he explains his commentary. He says, God's wrath was inflamed when Abraham made this covenant with Avimelech. Right? Why? And he explains why was God's wrath inflamed. He says, Shari Eretz Plishtim Bichlal Gvul Yisrael, because the land of the Philistine land is part of the borders of Israel. VaKadosh Baruch Hu tziva alehem lo tichaya kol neshama, and God commanded they shouldn't allow those nations that are coming against Israel to live. So he's saying that God was so angry that he made a covenant with the evil enemy of Israel, with one of the nations that were taking over the land of Israel, and God therefore was angry about what happened. And what was the result of that? And he says like this. Here how he explains the result. He says, Klomar nitgaeta beven shenatativ lechot brit benechem. He goes, you like showed your sort of like your arrogance. It's a powerful explanation. But you like showed your pride that you had a son now, that you actually made a covenant with benechem, with between your children and uvein benechem and their children. Vata lech v'aleu lola. Now take your son and offer him as an offering. V'yireh ma ho'ilu kritot brit shelcha. And we'll go see how this covenant you made is going to be to your benefit. In other words, we see something extremely powerful message of the words of the Rashbam, is that by making this covenant with the evil enemy, you are now going to have to sacrifice your son to bring him as a offering before me. In other words, you're endangering the life of your children. And he goes on to say, "V'chein matzati acharechem midrash al Shmuel." I found in the Midrash, "Vahi Aaron Hashem be'eretz Plishtim shiva chodeshim." We know when we read about in the book of Judges that the Philistines captured our ark. They took it in battle, and it was 7 months in battle. And the Midrash says that this is parallel to what? The 7 sheep that Abraham offered to as a covenant that he gave him away as a gift, to making the covenant with Avimelech, the king of the Philistines. Okay, and he goes on to say the Midrash, you made this covenant with 7 sheep, and he goes, Chayecha, on your life, your children are going to have to make 7 wars with these enemies. Okay? In other words, these Philistines are going to make 7 wars against Israel, these Pelishtim. Or you want to call them the Palestinians. Anyway, so if we take these messages we saw right now so clearly, we understand almost everything that's going on current events today. Number one, the people of Israel are a people of kindness, of love and kindness. That's Abraham, to reach out, to open your home, to open your tents. How many people were inviting in these enemies from Gaza into their homes to try to help them, take care of them? They were in our hospitals. The love and kindness is there. Israel always goes overboard with love and kindness. But we always have to come back to that same concept. When you are too overly love and kindness, you begin to show cruelty to your own merciful people. And that's what happened. For years, those who were living in Judea and Samaria were driving on roads. Just yesterday, we saw another killing. Someone who's risking his life in battle for the land, for saving the land of Israel, comes home to go to his home in Judea and Samaria. He's shot to death by terrorists yesterday in Samaria. And this kind of thing has been going on for years. But this kind of like forgetfulness and forgiving the enemy, that maybe they'll forget and maybe they'll reverse the situation. Certain times the vessel could be cleansed only by breaking the vessel. And that was the message God told us through Sodom and Gomorrah, Sodom and Gomorrah. There's no other choice. You have to. God gave you as a people of love and kindness. You'll be light to the nations, for the nations that want to hear your message. But certain times the enemy is too dangerous, and you cannot reverse the situation without making a huge total changes in the land. But that's Israel. We saw that flickering back and forth in the left wing of Israel, always believing in some kind of this concept. It's possible to buy them off with money, and because they're such in a bad situation, It's not true. It's all a lie. We know who our enemy is. Those who really know the enemy, that they have the Middle Eastern understanding of culture here, that want to uproot and destroy us because not because we're Israel, because we're Jews. It's anti-Semitic attack, a hatred against Israel. As we see it flaring all over, what did the Jews of America or France or England are doing now that they're flaring up against them and trying to putting swastikas on their graves and in the synagogues and in their homes, putting symbols of Magen David, Jewish stars. It's all anti-Semitism. And it's coming up. And God, just like Sarah says, get them out. Throw them out of it. You cannot have this evil with my son Isaac, my precious child who wants to live in peace and be a good light to the world, bring the chesed to the world. It won't happen if they're in your country. It has to be taken care of. And that's the message of Sarah. And this is the message we see, of course, of the covenant that Abraham made, and what it caused. Afterwards, we have to go to battle and offer our sons in battle because of the terrible mistakes that were made by generals. Everyone we're tired. What did Olmert say? Oh, we're tired of battle. Of course, we don't want to fight. No one wants, but we have to realize sometimes we have no choice. That evil must be dealt with, and you can't just push it under the carpet and say it's going to go away. You have to focus on until you eliminate that evil, and that's really where we're standing today. There was a wake-up call in Israel. This evil showed its face. Those who saw, they showed a 40-something minute movie to the Knesset, the parliament members, and other people have seen it as well, to realize how evil these Amalekim are, these forces that want to destroy us. And to know your enemy. There's no room to compromise. Israel has to continue the job. Israel now is deep inside Gaza, pulling forward, sacrificing its most beautiful, amazing youth that are fighting there, and married men, families, young families, people giving their lives for the safety of our nation, for the messages of Abraham to be a light to the nations for the future and for the benefit of all mankind. It's a war that will benefit all mankind. And we have the trouble in the north we're going to have to deal with eventually as well. It's not over. With Iranians and their wonderful proxies all over the place. We saw from Yemen what has been the missile sent to Israel this week. So we have to realize sometimes we have to be strong and fight. Israel has to show that light. And the world can't give mixed messages. Israel is being, thank God, the United States has been wonderful sending in aid, and we appreciate that extremely. But we can't accept even the idea of a two-state solution to land. That's already wish-washy, back and forth. No way. What did Sarah say? Chase them out. There's no room for any other country but the country of Israel. And that is really the message we have to be strong with. We've always said that message. And those who want to come and set up another state will endanger Israel, just like what happened in Gaza a month ago. On our border will happen in other parts of the land, and will even endanger even more the people of Israel. This is a war for our existence, and it's another war of independence, and we have to win it, and we will win the war. And therefore, sometimes we have to fight and be very, very strong and not give in to our natural tendency of love and kindness, because sometimes showing love and kindness, when you shouldn't show love and kindness, you're showing cruelty to your own people. And that's why our people have been hurt and killed and maimed and mutilated and raped, and children, women, Holocaust survivors, kidnapped, all these things because of our overly praying for Sodom v'Amorah. And that really is the answer we get out of this portion. Let us take us to our hearts and let the world walk with us, because all those who walk with Israel will be blessed. We have to know this battle is a battle of our survival and a battle of the light of goodness to shine in this world. We cannot let the evil lift up its head anymore. The time has come to respond. Shabbat Shalom, Bisarot Tovot, V'Yeshuot V'Nechamot.